Hello and welcome. I want to talk to you about my Firepower Threat Defense, my Firepower and Firepower Threat Defense table of contents for my 5-day class. Let's go ahead and take a look. I want to go step by step through this. So first off, let's start off with day one. I want you to understand everything that we do. If you're considering coming to the Firepower Threat Defense, this will tell you everything that you need to know. First off, we cover everything ASA with Firepower and everything Firepower Threat Defense. So if we can see here that the day one, we're going to start with an overview over here of what is Firepower, what is Firepower Threat Defense, what is Firepower Management Center. And then we're going to get in and configure your own Firepower Management Center. The key about this class is every single person gets their own pod of equipment in FMC and FTD and ASA with Firepower, everything that you need by yourself with no sharing. This is important to understand. The second thing is every lab that we do in this class is written because I went out to a customer and did that. It's very important to understand that this is a real class. I don't teach you fluff. I only teach you what happens in the real world. So also we're going to then, after we configure and start our Firepower Management Center with the system configuration, we're going to go ahead and talk about our health policies and our health monitor alerts. So it'll email you if you have a critical alert. So we'll scroll down here and see now that we're going to log into our Firepower Threat Defense box and get into the console. Everyone's going to have their own FTD box, and we're going to be able to configure it all through the week. We're going to log into the console, we're going to configure the device, and we're going to add it into our FMC. Right? There's some great stuff here, and then we're going to verify with the command line interface what we can do with the Firepower Threat Defense. It's much different than the ASA was in the sense that we can't configure anything from the console, only from the Firepower Management Center. Be advised, the ASA with Firepower, you configure it through ASDM, you configure it through the CLI, and then you configure it with the FMC. In this case here, you have to configure everything with the FMC. Okay, and that includes what we'll do next after lunch on the first day, our interfaces. We're going to configure our interfaces and put them into zones. We're going to configure static routing. We'll also configure other routing such as EIGRP in this class. We'll then create objects that we'll use for rules in our access control policy. That's our main policy, and objects are very important for our configuration. Now, zone objects are part of objects as well, but we want to make sure and put our physical interfaces inside what's called a logical zone. Zones are a logical grouping of an interface or group of interfaces. So we'll go into that in depth. On day two, we'll hit an FTD policy called platform settings. These platform settings are only FTD, and we're going to configure things that will help us to harden it as well, syslog, SNMP, and who can come in through SSH and so on. Then we'll hit our access control policy in depth. We will learn everything in and out, especially security intelligence. That's all part of this. So I think I have that written down here. Security intelligence is a big part of our first line of defense. Very, very important. Then we're going to go ahead after lunch and create something that's specific just for FTD, and that is a pre-filter. When we had our ASAs with Firepower or just ASAs, we came in, we did our NAT decryption, VPN, whatever, and then we hit our ACL. We dropped a lot of traffic there. We permitted a lot of traffic there. And if we were ASA with Firepower, it would then go to the service policy and go up to the Firepower module. In this case here, we don't have any of that. We're going to come in, we're going to decrypt and go right to the pre-filter, which allows us to trust traffic and send it right to egress without any inspection. That's a great feature. So we'll learn all about the pre-filter. Then we'll go ahead and get into NAT. We'll talk about the different types of NAT and configure static NAT, which we'll be using throughout the course. And then, of course, one of the easiest policies, but the most fun policy is the malware policy, because you get to actually see blocking of certain types of files or malware, bad files, right? And you're going to see that in the file malware policy, we're only going to block clear traffic, clear text traffic that we can see malware in, which takes us then to the next policy, which would be our SSL policy, where now we can go in and look in encrypted traffic. Great policy and new for the new class in 2018. Day three, we're going to go ahead and start with kind of a detailed, we're going to spend a lot of time in IPS, in Snort, configuring it and understanding it, how to change a rule and look at it in analysis. We're going to then put it all together and verify it. We're going to use Kali to send attacks and watch our ACP, which has our IPS in it, right? We're going to watch it, our security intelligence, our malware policy, our IPS policy, all in there come together and work for us. We're then going to add our AD integration to the FMC and then hit something called Firepower Network Discovery. Now, this used to be called real-time user awareness, real-time network awareness, and then I think it was in 5.3 or 5.4, we changed it to FireSight, which honestly, guys, is a much better name for this, and I'm pretty bummed that they changed this, actually. I think FireSight was a great name for this powerful technology. Have to have this for network analysis. We'll then do our DNS policy, which is going to be, that's a fun policy as well, but it'll be more fun when we get to correlation policies. We'll put those together. Day 4, we'll start with a long review, make sure everything is working, and troubleshoot. Troubleshooting is a big part of this class, right? Flex config allows us to take, say, a protocol like EIGRP we're discussing here and put it into the configuration of FTD. You can't go to the console and say router EIGRP autonomous system number, which is a shame. That would be nice. Everything must be done through the FMC. Well, since they don't have that EIGRP inside the routing protocols, now we can put it in through something called Flex config. User account management is important, albeit easy. We'll configure an external, we'll configure a local user, but also an external user, which is what we'd mostly use. Okay, and then in I think the most important policy of the 5-day class is event analysis. So this is very important, and we're going to learn to tune our policies based on network analysis. We're going to use real-life examples in real-life companies, and we're going to go in there and we're going to tune the policies. So anyone can push out policies, but can you make them efficient? The way to make them efficient is go through your network analysis and tune those policies according to what your network analysis is showing you. We have to understand logging. We have to understand network analysis. I think this is the most important thing because we can push out policies all day long. They're either not going to work right, or they're going to give us false positives, or they're not going to be efficient. And this chapter will help us do all of that. Reporting and task management, again, very important, but not something you have to do all the time. I'll go out to a customer and I'll set this up before I leave. I'll spend a couple hours on it, and it's great. They get reports all the time on various maybe attacks or whatever they want to see. But the task management helps us schedule those reports, but also backups and updates on different policies. Very important. QoS, it's kind of fun. On this one here, I don't do this in production a lot. Some people do. It's mostly just a traffic cop on an interface. You know, it's not the same type of QoS we were doing on our switchings for VoIP, so got to make sure we understand that. And we'll get it to work. We'll do some bandwidth limiting on our interfaces. Network analysis policy, or NAP, kind of a hard policy, honestly, but we'll go through that and I'll show you how to set it up so Snort can read your traffic correctly. Correlation policy, pretty tough policy, but we'll make it fun by implementing it with our DNS policy. It's pretty fun. AMP for endpoint. This is an add-on. Goes on your inside host. It has a separate console, not the FMC, although it can send alerts to your FMC for correlation of events. We'll go ahead and use the AMP for endpoint and go through the console and understand how to track malware through the network. Now, one of the things that we may or may not do is the FTD final lap. I usually always do it, but there's been some instances where students are like, man, I just don't want to do it. But if you're paying the money, you know, you want to do this because repetition is key to success. So we want to be successful here. And this allows us to go through all our labs again. I can set new FMCs in there. We have to license them again. So that was one of the other things I didn't mention, but you will license your own FMC. We'll do everything from scratch. Just like when I walk into a customer every day, this is exactly what I do. This is a great, great class. Okay, and then for fun, Firepower domains, new in 6 code. If you have multiple administrators in multiple areas and they're responsible for those areas, domains are the way to go. If you have administrators all in one location and they administrate it all, domains are cumbersome. It'll make it harder to troubleshoot. So we'll get into domains so you truly understand them. One of my favorite labs is the high availability. It's pretty easy, and I'll go through some of the pitfalls and troubleshooting high availability. It does take a while to do the high availability with FTD, but there's some steps we'll go through. Now, I know this is funny, but at the end of Friday, on the last day, we do AnyConnect, which is kind of a hard lab. We'll get that up and running and test AnyConnect. And then we'll do an easier one, site-to-site VPN between two students. That one's pretty simple. But then ICE gets a little cumbersome and detailed with certificates and so on. But we have to do it. ICE with PX Grid is the future. And then lastly, we'll make sure that we harden our FTD boxes. Okay, so I hope that helped explain the class and everything we're going to go through. Let me write this down. Todd@lammle.com. Write me with any questions. And thank you for writing. I hope you guys have a great day.